gather round for this very exciting occasion. So for those of you who don't know, my name is David Mitchell. I'm the mayor of the town of Bridgewater, and I am super excited to be here. I know this has been a long time coming. We wanted to do this many years ago. There's some complications. You can all call the province and your MLA and get them to update the traffic standards. That makes it so these aren't illegal. But, you know, between Steve and our staff, we found a solution on, you know, a very busy intersection, very highly prominent, which is what we want to. But I just want to convey that this is more than just, you know, painting some colors on the road. You all know that. It's the town's way of publicly demonstrating to everyone that this is a safe, respectful, inclusive community where everyone deserves to be treated with love. And I know for many of you it doesn't feel like that. So I fielded a few calls. Why are you doing this? Why are you spending the money? Well, because some people don't have the luxury of just walking around being exactly who they want to be, a full, true expression of themselves without someone judging, hurting them. You don't have to go down all, you know. So this is just a small thing that the town can do to express that this is everyone's community, regardless of who you are, how you identify, whatever it is. This is your community. And so we are privileged to be able to do this. So I do want to thank Lunenburg Pride and our staff team for working together, and I look forward to the parade that's coming next month, our first Pride Parade. Town Council will be there with all of you, and so, you know, better things are ahead. And I'll turn it over to you.
Jeez, now I gotta try not to cry. Thank you. No, I mean, like you said, this is it's a small gesture in the grand scheme of things, but it really means a lot more than just paint on a road. I know people here are part of the LGBTQ+ community. There are allies here, and the climate that we're currently living in, where there is a lot of vitriol and attacks on LGBTQ folks, especially trans people and drag queens, you know, especially when we have the events in Bridgewater next month, this will show to them that it's more than just paint. You know, this is a town that is welcome and inclusive to anyone, no matter the minority that comes out and tries to speak out against us, because, you know, we're not going anywhere. And it truly means a lot to me that we've worked through all the ups and downs with the rules and found a way to make it work, because it's so important that we have a crosswalk in Bridgewater, especially now that Bridgewater is growing and it's going to grow in the coming years. So I just want to thank everyone who came out, and this is wonderful that it happens to be in place before Pride Week next month. So I hope that anytime you're around here, whether it's during Pride Week or not, that you'll remember this very important day, and, you know, we will just keep staying positive despite all the reasons we have not to be. So thanks, everybody.
I'm Amanda Fancy. I'm the dealer-owner of Gow's Home Hardware and Furniture. We've been at this location for about a year. We started in 1848, way back when, This is our 5th location, so you know, we've never have left the town limits. So when we're looking to build this location, you know, we had lots of opportunity to potentially look at you know, outside of the town limits, but it was really key for us to be and continue to be a growing business in Bridgewater. Bridgewater, Nova Scotia is unique. We have a beautiful countryside. Our town is 7,500 people, but then, you know, our customer reach is about 45,000. So, you know, we're talking about lots of small communities, you know, hidden treasures. There's huge opportunity here, and I think that it's certainly worthwhile to make the visit, make the call, do some inquiring, because it certainly is somewhere where I think there would be some you know, strong investment opportunities for sure.
My name is Joey Richard. I come from Quebec, Montreal. I've studied opera at the Montreal Conservatoire of Music, so this is where I've learned about Italian, the language, and the food. And my passion just became bigger and bigger for food. I've been cooking for 20 years, almost. I opened a family business, but the only thing I forgot is that my family is still in Montreal, so I'm like, you know, I make new friends, I'm building this thing, but it is a family business here. My chef is like my brother, his wife is like my sister, so I mean, I recreated a family environment. We do the real recipes, starting from the real ingredients, and for Italian food, what the secret is, few ingredients and very fresh. So each recipe would be like 3-4 ingredients maximum. But I mean, it's just the best ingredients and makes it so delicious. If you think that it's impossible to have your own business, I'm the living proof that it is possible. People want us to thrive. We work together. So everybody helps each other. If you want to be part of a community, it is the community to be part of.
My name is Joel Holland. I'm the owner and operator of 902 Athletics. I found the opportunity, started this gym in my parents' garage, and now we are currently in an 8,600 square foot facility. A lot of people come here because of the community. The things that we offer here are different than a normal gym. It's an open atmosphere where you come in, the music's played over the loudspeakers, not in your ears. You don't put earbuds in and just walk around from one machine to the other. You focus on yourself, but at the same time you get to meet new people. We have 3 floors, which we do CrossFit, boot camps, athletic training, and personal training. We have so many other businesses that are growing our economy and feeding into it becoming more populated, a place where people actually stay as opposed to leave. We're growing, we're getting bigger, and a lot of people are on the same push to become a better Bridgewater. I love this place. It's my home, and there is no other place that I would want my business to be.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council. I'll call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Councillor Tanner, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fougere. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that the town of Bridgewater is located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and it is our privilege to be here. Just probably a note of what is the obvious, that is that CAO Crowder is away today, and so filling in is our Director of Finance, Ms. Hawkins. We're as excited as you are to be here, like super stoked.
I know, she's pretty excited.
I don't have to bore you with budgets tonight.
No comment. All right, are there any announcements from members of council or perhaps staff? We have Canada Day coming up, so perhaps Patrick, you can run through the big day, weather permitting, I guess.
Absolutely, happy to do so. Yes, we see that there's a bit of a change in the long-range forecast for the end of this week, so we're very hopeful that we'll have clear skies. Because, of course, on Saturday, July 1st, we're going to be celebrating Canada Day throughout Bridgewater for literally the entire day, pretty much. It's going to kick off in the morning with the Canada Day block party, which includes the breakfast at the Royal Canadian Legion, as well as a yard sale and bake sale at the Curling Club. So all of that activity happens between 8 and 2 p.m. From 11 till 4, the South Shore Multicultural Association, in partnership with Des Brisés Museum, will be hosting their Multicultural Festival at Woodland Gardens and in the meadow space and behind the museum. We have a free Canada Day swim running from 12 to 3 p.m. at the O'Regan Subaru Outdoor Swimming Pool, so hopefully it'll be a warm day and folks can come and cool off there and perhaps make the visit over to the Multicultural Festival while they're in the neighborhood. Bridgewater Transit is going to be running free all day thanks to a sponsorship by the Bridgewater and Area Chamber of Commerce. So Transit's hours are slightly shifted on July 1st. The bus will come into service at 11 a.m. and will run until midnight to allow folks to get downtown in the evening for the King Street Kitchen Party, which runs from 4 to 11 p.m. and is going to feature 4 different live music performers at Bijanua Park, Jamie Younger, John Dow, Norma McDonald, and McCarty. We've got more than a half dozen food truck vendors that will be setting up on King Street between Dominion and Empire, including Smokenstein, Abby's Curry and More, Mama Pita, Bahama Mama, the Purple People Feeder, the Cake Lady, and Tastylicious. And we've got all kinds of other entertainment for all ages, from Bagels the Clown to Halifax Henna. The Pirates of Halifax will be there. There's going to be a motorcycle show and shine. Plenty of games. Our summer rec staff will be on site setting those up, as well as our evening fresh air film, which is Stuart Little. So that's going to start on the North Parkade at about sunset and take us through until 10:30 when, weather permitting, the fireworks will start and will be visible from around the Old Bridge area of the downtown. If anyone's looking for a complete list of all this, because it is a lot to take in one session like this, you can go to www.bridgewater.ca/Canada, and all that info is there.
Awesome. Perfect. Looking forward to it. Thank you. All right. Any other announcements from folks? All right. Then we will move into delegations. We have a couple of delegations today. So I would invite Bonnie and Ed Brugger to the podium. Just a reminder, you've got 10 minutes to address council. You can go. You can sit if you want, or if you prefer to sit. Yeah. You've got 10 minutes. That doesn't include questions from council. And I'll just note there's a timer to your right, but you don't have to look at it. It'll beep when the time runs down. Okay.
Mayor and Council, my name is Bonnie Brugger and I live at 5 Brook Street here in Bridgewater. And I am a retired policy and legislative analyst, and I work for the Ministry of Finance in British Columbia. And pretty well everything that had to do with property was within our mandate, except land titles. And what we're going to be sort of talking about today is property taxes.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, my name is Ed Brugger. I also reside at 5 Brook Street in and I'm a retired computer programmer analyst and database administrator. And I was, during my working years, I was assisted in programming the property tax system for one of the largest, actually I should say, one of the largest municipalities in BC. Thank you.
Now, just to start, one of the things that's been handed out to everybody is a sheet that has some stats that have come from the Assessment Authority here in Nova Scotia, and it shows the changes in assessment for this year and properties that broken out into the number of properties that had their assessments either go up or down, and as you can see, most of them went up for this particular year, and some of them some fairly significant percentage increases in assessments. One of the things I'd like to first address is that Nova Scotia municipalities receive 57% of their revenues from property taxes, which is, in Canada, it's only exceeded by Quebec, and they receive 60% of their revenues. So it's a very large percent that comes from property taxes to municipalities in this province. And one of the things I'd like to also address to start is how did the Assessment Authority really get to where it got to present Bridgewater with these stats? We have to look at that properties literally have 3 different values that they're going to have put on them. And one will be their market value, and that is literally the amount somebody will pay for a house, not the listed price. Another one is the appraised value of a property, and that is comes out of a certified appraisal of that property. And for that, they look at things like the square footage, the location, materials that were used in the building of the home, condition of it, and location. And then there is the assessed value. Now, in most municipalities, most provinces, I guess I should say actually, what is looked at for assessed values of property, they use values that come from the actual appraiser is used in many provinces. They send appraisers out to the property. They look at, is it rural or urban? They look at and review building permits, and they do look at the market value of properties, but usually over about a 5-year time span. Now, Nova Scotia Assessment Authority is absolutely unique from our understanding of how they arrive at their percentage of increases or decreases. They use one and only one value. They use the market value for only 1 year. So this is really, when you look at it, a very unreliable way of coming up with an assessed value for properties. As we all know, market values go up and they come down. But they're used by municipalities to then take and come up with what they are going to put as property taxes on properties. So using what the Assessment Authority uses to arrive at their assessed values, if property values go up, that's great for municipalities. But if they actually come down, is any member here, would they ever look at reducing property taxes? Because that literally is what you're being given by the Assessment Authority, is 1 year of market values. So for us, one of the things that we have had to look at, and is a real concern for us as 2 seniors, is what has happened in a very short time we have lived in Bridgewater, which we bought our house September the 16th, 2020. So we've been here less than 3 years. And in those 3 years, we have seen a significant increase in our property taxes, which looking at what the assessment authority has done and how much of a percent it's gone up, but then looking at actually how that translates to what we're paying in property taxes per year. And what we're looking at in our 2 full years of paying property taxes are some pretty significant increases. I'm going to talk about this year first, because we saw a 13.1% increase in our property taxes, and that translates to us as $887.68 in 1 year that our taxes have gone up. Now, the previous year they also went up, and I believe it was 5.4%. So in the short time we've lived here, we have seen our property taxes go up by 19.2%. That is a horrendous increase in property taxes. And quite frankly, to me, is not sustainable in the long run. So, I mean, we've looked at things like reviewed what staff presented mayor and council with for like projects that should be taken on or not taken on, how to possibly reduce property taxes or at least hold them in check for their taxpayers. That, from what we're looking at, certainly the numbers just don't support that, not with these huge increases. We also have experience of having lived all over Canada, and I can honestly say never once have seen anything like this in an under 3-year time span to have property taxes go up. Now, another thing that we did was we have a lot of friends that live in Victoria, British Columbia, and being one of the most expensive cities to live in, but it does have something similar to Bridgewater. It has no industrial base for taxes at all. So we talked to some of our friends out there and asked them what had happened with their property taxes. These homes are valued at between $1.1 and $1.3 million that our friends own. Now, their property taxes universally were about half of what we pay right here in Bridgewater for our property taxes. And our house is valued at, it's capped, a taxable capped value, so it's a $374,300. Now you can see there's no comparison in the values of the property, and yet they're paying half the property taxes we are. So it's, for us, a question is how do you actually justify this kind of increase in such a short time period? That's our question to Mayor and Council.
Okay. You're all done?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure. Yeah. So it's. I mean, I get you're comparing where you lived in BC. I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare that to small town Nova Scotia. I was doing some research earlier today. So from 2020 to 2022 in Vancouver, for example, the average assessment increase was 30%. So while their tax rates would have held, obviously their taxes went up 30%.
That's the difference.
Right, so we increased the rate this year, but we didn't increase the rate we held at the previous 2 years. The assessment increases, like nobody's going to deny that PVSC increased everyone's assessment. Now they were capped at
about 7%.
7%,
yes, 7%.
right? So we can talk about the cap. I know that as the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, we've had issues with the cap for years because people who have stayed in their homes longer are being subsidized. Their tax rate is essentially being subsidized by people who have bought their homes in the last few years. But essentially what happened with inflation is it wiped out the entire assessment gain that we would have had. So just like your costs go up and everyone else's costs go up with fuel and insurance, all the assessment gains that we saw on the tax roll were eaten up by inflation. The other issue that we've had, and we've talked about this for a number of years, is we have an over $50 million wastewater infrastructure upgrade to complete within a federally mandated timeline. And unfortunately, we have 9,000 residential taxpayers and about 450 commercial taxpayers to redo the infrastructure that serves over 35,000 people. So it'd be nice if we had 35,000 taxpayers, because that's the number of people that use our infrastructure every day. But that's not how it works, and it's unfortunately not how we're funded. Bridgewater, 85% of our revenue is from taxes. So I think your number was 50 something. That probably includes rural. No, if it's an average.
57% right. Was the number that I could find.
Yeah, so for Bridgewater and similar towns, it's about 85%. Part of that is, and again, like I could talk about this forever. I know Councillor Thorburn could talk about the roads and how if you're in a town, you have to pay 100% of your roads, but if you live in a rural community, the province takes care of those. We have a municipal police force, but if you have an RCMP police force, you're subsidized 20 to 30%, which means we're paying twice for both of those things. So there's a lot of things that, you know, if you made it more fair and equitable with these funding models, we'd love to reduce taxes. None of us are happy about the tax rate we have to charge. But, like I said, we've got a massive wastewater infrastructure upgrade. We're doing a huge project at Exit 12A, which both of these will have huge benefits. We won't have to do the infrastructure upgrade again once it's done. So once that cost is out of the way, then we can look at how we get things more stable. But yeah, it's a very complicated issue. The cap makes it even more complicated. You've raised some good points. I can't speak to how PVSC does their why they use the model they do for how they assess properties. I think Joe Feeney is still the chair of PVSC. So Joseph Feeney, who's a councillor in Mahone Bay, is the chair of the Property Valuation Assessment Services. He'd probably be a good resource to reach out and say, you know, why do you do it this way versus the other ways?
I spoke, not with her, but I spoke with them at length, and had to have them repeat a number of times how they actually came up with it, being involved in property taxes as part of it was in my portfolio as a policy analyst, and was beyond shocked, and I guess we both were. It's just a very odd way of coming up with it, in a very limited, very narrow scope that is being used. 1 year of market value. Don't know any other place. There might be, but I do not know any other place that uses such a narrow scope to come up with assessed values. And but they are very comfortable with that format. So
yeah, I don't know if council has any questions or anything else they want to add. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we would all agree that we would love to lower taxes, but unfortunately we have work that we have no choice but to get through, which requires us to pay the bill for that. So we are constantly looking for sources of funding. We're constantly talking to the government about changing the funding model so that money that is given out, whether it's gas tax money or other funding models, is used more efficiently. Population-based funding models are the most inefficient way to deliver money, and that's what they use. So that's why we have, again, 9,000 people receiving less funding for infrastructure than a community that has 20,000 people or 30,000 people and zero infrastructure. So there's ways to solve it. We just need people to listen to us when we knock on their door. Councillor Cheney, you look like you might have had a question.
No, Bonnie, just a quick question. I didn't understand your point about no industrial base.
Oh,
what did
you don't really have an industrial base here, like a lot of communities do, and Victoria doesn't either. That's why we talk to them, because then you're looking at other sources to bring in money to support projects that you're going to do when you don't have something that you can tax at a far, far higher rate. And both places are similar in that, although their populations are very different. But I would have to say municipalities and just everybody right now is working under severe budget constraints. We have a budget, we have to follow it, and just don't do certain things anymore. It's as simple as that. So that's why I was using it as a comparison.
Councilor Conklin.
I'm sorry, when did you say you folks moved to Brook? When did you buy the house?
We bought the house September the 16th, 2020. So we've only seen 2 full tax years and a partial year because of when we purchased the property.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that more than likely, given the environment when you purchased, it was probably above market value, the house that you...
No, it was just before the market really went crazy in Bridgewater. There was still room to negotiate the price, the asking price downward. So that vanished very shortly after we bought the property. People were paying over asking.
Sorry.
Very shortly after.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I'll rephrase it. Likely the purchase price was higher than the assessed value at that time.
Yes.
And that's, yeah, so, you know, the caveat to that is that, you know, I'm sure you know, given how the PDSC does their calculations, so that kind of just triggers a big increase down the road because your assessed value now will be at the actual sale price.
Yes, our real estate agent advised us about that our first year. So when we got our property taxes the following year, I guess is the way to put it, that there would be a sizable increase from what the former owners had been paying in property taxes, and that is what happened. And we were prepared for that. We knew that was going to happen. What we were not prepared for was this year at 13.1%, so which far exceeded the year before, when we were prepared, knowing that the assessed value and what the market value of the house was, or what we paid for it, would then take the property taxes and they would go up.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, so our tax rates this year were based on the assessment from 2021, I guess. The provincial
yes,
assessment.
they would have been December of 2022 for the tax, for the interim tax bill,
okay.
But they lag still
so
from the year to at least
numbers.
a year behind. Yeah.
So, okay. And sorry, another question. Yep. 2 more. If you have any suggestions on other revenue streams for our town, we'd be more than happy to hear about it. As Mayor Mitchell mentioned, we do have heavy reliance on our tax base, where 85% of our income is derived from taxation, basically. The only other thing I guess would be I wasn't aware that the PDSC is so unique compared to the rest of Canada in how they do their property tax calculations or assessed value calculations. So I'm guessing maybe you might want to lobby our local MLA as a start, possibly, to see if you can.
Yeah, if they actually brought it, like they took a broader look at what they were using to calculate, that would bring them more in line with what other municipalities do and give more of, particularly if they're just going to use market values, then use a 5-year timeline, not a 1-year timeline. And then they'll get a much better understanding of what is happening with that in any given area of the province. So it just was really quite interesting to hear how they arrived at it.
Well, and this brings us back to the discussion on the cap too, because if you want new home buyers, you want young home buyers, people downsizing even and wanting to not necessarily move into multi-unit but to buy another house, they're being punished by essentially resetting the value, right? So you bought a house and that's your taxes are going to go back up. They're going to go to, if I just look on Viewpoint, they're working their way towards what you paid for the house. So that's why you're seeing these large increases, right? So if you pay this and it was this, PVSC will get you to where you paid for it. But not everyone moves up at the same rate. So what happens is you're bearing the brunt, where other people are being subsidized. And again, if you're a brand new homeowner and you're trying to buy your first time home, in a market where the values are high, they could look at the sheet and go, oh, last year they paid $2,500 in taxes. Well, when they buy it, that's going to reset to $5,000 because, and that's a hard hit. But that's because some people are going up this much and some people are not. So it makes it difficult to set a rate as well.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, ours have gone up to, in a year, $7,667.14, which is outrageous. It is outrageous. And we have to look at another thing that must be sort of thought of. Different provinces in Canada have different ways that they look at different, I guess, groups of people. So it might be disabled, what are viewed or under legislation, just qualified as disabled individuals. There is relief for individuals like that. Some seniors, I know that there is some relief in the province of Nova Scotia, but other provinces have some very unique systems that they have come up with for keeping individuals in their homes, given different scenarios. And one that you brought up, Mayor, is that a lot of people that purchased a home and have lived in it for years and years and years, they are now seniors and cannot afford these tax increases on the home, and they're actually forced to sell the home and leave. And there are provinces that have come up with 2 different systems that I'm aware of that help that group of people stay in homes and not lose them from the communities as a valuable asset as seniors. And it's just, there are different things that can be done, but again, if you have to look at the balance, you cannot put programs in place that are going to reduce taxes or defer taxes for groups of people if you don't have enough of a tax base to support the projects you're already taking on. So that is a catch-22 with that kind of thing. But I mean, to me, I would really look at the projects that are taken on and just say, like, the wastewater is huge when you have a legislative requirement to do that. You don't get a choice on that one. But if you looked at it, everywhere you go in Bridgewater, there is infrastructure work going on. Did it all have to happen this year? All of it? Every one of them?
We are going to be hard pressed to get it done in time. We have essentially 10 years to do decades of work. Yeah. So the federal government has said our system right now is designed to overflow into the river when we have a heavy rain event, for example. It's, still not ideal, but when those heavy rain events happen once every 10 or 15 years, it was, unfortunate, but not a regular occurrence. Now, and then a few years ago that happened annually. Now it seems to happen a few times a month, where the system is just so much rainwater is coming in, our storms are heavier. So the federal government has said, and this is Canada-wide, no system can overflow into the river, and you've got to get it done by this date. Well, we would normally spend, our capital budget is between $6 and $8 million a year for everything. We're spending more than that a year just on wastewater. Plus, we still have to pave and do all the other infrastructure work, and if something breaks, then we got to fix that. So we would love to well, I don't want to push it out too far because we do not want to overflow into the river, but like we're under the clock as it is, and COVID didn't help. Supply chain issues haven't helped. Worker shortage hasn't helped. So we're already behind the 8 ball. Not that it makes it easier, but I hope it explains it. Again, if you can reach out to Councillor Joe Feeney. Joseph's the councillor in Mahone Bay, who's the chair of the PVSC. I think he's very receptive to conversations like this. I think he'd be receptive to hear some of your ideas and comparisons to how assessments are done in other provinces. So I think that's probably a really good starting point, and see what he says about why they do it the way they do.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you very much,
Thank you.
Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
All right, our next delegation is Blair Lipset from the Bridgewater Barracudas. Blair, come on down.
Good evening. Mayor Mitchell, Deputy Mayor Frugier, and councillors, I submitted a package for you just to give you a brief overview as to the one document I sent. I'm the president of the Bridgewater Barracudas, as you know, and we received a notification with regard to our hourly pool rates for pool rental for the 2023 swimming season at the O'Regan's Outdoor Pool on June 14th, which we were very grateful to receive, obviously. However, it represented a 25% increase of our former fee, and each year, as a nonprofit, we do put our budget together based on the current current bill that we anticipated coming forward, which was $80 an hour before any additional lifeguards were needed, which wasn't, as you see in my narrative, something we readily drew upon. So I had the opportunity, thankfully, some of your colleagues in the town said, why don't you come and present some information to the council, and I didn't know I could do this, to be quite honest. We were just going to see how we could make this work. However, being in front of you tonight, and obviously knowing that you read my short little piece as to why I came here tonight, I would just like to again pose to the council that potentially you would consider holding or freezing our current hourly rate of the pool rental fee to $80, that includes tax, for the 2023 season, so that we might be able to talk about what that rate would be in 2024 for the Barracudas, and also potentially coming up again as an idea with a Barracuda rate to rent the pool, because I do understand that we are the largest client group that rents from the outdoor pool annually, and there's no secret that we would love to stay there for the foreseeable future. We've been there since 1972, and we hope to be there until 2172. I mean, I won't be there. Hopefully my kids won't be swimming either, but that's why I wanted to come forward today and just propose that there's a freeze in 2023 so that we can stay close to our budgeted allocation of expenses. Everything has gone up, and we recognize that these have to go up too. We just were a little surprised by the increase and the time frame that we got it. So that is my piece. I didn't even start the timer. I didn't think that I would need it.
We need to be under 10 minutes.
I try. Thank you very much.
Questions? This is later on our agenda, but Councillor McDonald?
Can I ask what time of year you typically do your budgeting?
We usually do our budgeting in January and February, when we start looking at coaches and the coaching complement. So based on, we always look at the prior years, and that could be something, again, this is something, Jen, that we're going to look at doing better going forward, because we've never had this situation happen before. So we would look at the previous year's rental rates, calculate that into basically how much we would be spending with all our scheduled events that we have, which are pretty boilerplate. They don't change very often. And then we would anticipate what coaching complement we would need, and then therefore make adjustments to staffing accordingly. And because of rising costs, unfortunately we had to, and also the pandemic is no longer allowing us to have to rely on more staffing to navigate numbers. So we had to cut an assistant coach position this year just to save money, which will be fine. I mean, we'll make it work, but that's when we traditionally look at our budget, is January, February.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, Councillor Taylor?
Blair, I have a bit of a soft spot for the Barracudas, but what's the current registration fee for a swimmer?
Well, we had to increase it again this year, and I remember, Andrew, when you were president years ago, when my kids were very young, you had to do it too, and it was a tough decision, but right now the registration rate per child per summer session is $300.
Okay.
And we also add an additional $35 for new swimmers coming into the season to cover the Swim Nova Scotia fees, whereas I know when you were president, we absorbed those, so we've added an extra fee and then had to charge on top of that, again, to try just to keep in line with some of our costs.
Okay.
And that was just this year in 2023. It went from $250 to $300. And there is also no multiple child benefit, which for families like ours, I mean, you have two, I have a platoon of 4. So those multiple discounts really added up for those parents, but unfortunately we couldn't offer it this year because we're trying to generate more revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just a question, Blair. How many currently registered for this year's summer swim season, and is that sustainable to cover your costs based on what the minimum number is?
Yeah, thank you. Right now, Cheryl, our contingent is 100 swimmers, so it's not quite where we have maxed out in the past when we had about 120. So, but it is better than what we've seen over the last number of years with COVID, where we were around 80 to 85. So it is an increase in revenue in that regard, but it's still, you know, we're still trying to make sure that we don't spend too much or, you know, cover our costs as best we can.
Okay, great.
Any other questions? No? So this is the last item on our agenda, and we totally did it on purpose so you would have to sit around for the whole meeting.
What time does this meeting go to?
Oh, 11 o'clock. If we're finished tonight, it'll be a... No, I'm...
I was informed that I did not have to stay for the entirety of the meeting.
You definitely do not have to stay. I don't know why you wouldn't want to. Because
well, I have basketball at 8, and I never miss my Monday night basketball.
No,
so.
listen, we'll, yeah, it is later on, and I don't want to, I was going to shuffle it, but there's 2 items connected, no, then I got to move both, but we'll, you don't have to stay.
I trust that hopefully I've made a slight impact, and your decision will be sound, and I will respect it, whatever it is.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay, Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Blair. We've got the minutes of June 12th and the regular council meeting, June 19th, special council meeting. Any errors or omissions in those? Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes as circulated. Deputy Mayor Fragier, seconded by Councillor Caldwell. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Down to planning items. 6.1, municipal planning strategy amendments to enable land use bylaw amendments for the development agreement for 312 Dufferin. The first question most people are going to ask is, 312 Dufferin, just off of High Street. That's what I looked at it. So I know you're going to go through it, Nick, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, the land is the former Old Town Golf Course, and I think that is probably the best way to approach it. But yeah, thank you. So this report and request for direction originates from an application to initiate amendments to the municipal planning strategy, to then enable amendments to the land use bylaw and substantive amendments to an existing development agreement at the former Old Town Golf Course, known now as Old Town Hills. This application, should the work be continued, would result in evaluation of a proposal to enable 167 units and 10,000 square feet of commercial development through development agreement, which would represent Phase 1B of the Old Town Hills Master Plan. Phase 1A is under construction now, so this is the area adjacent to, fronting, or with access to Dufferin Street in the area of the old clubhouse. The application is to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to expand the permissions for commercial developments in the comprehensive residential R3 zone by development agreement. The initial municipal planning strategy request aligns nicely with current work and previous direction from council to investigate the permissions of the neighborhood commercial C7 zone. Also, upon initial assessment, proposed MPS amendments may be supported in policy, as policy focuses on mixing compatible land uses, encouraging compact development, improving the pedestrian experience, and fostering a vibrant community. As such, staff recommend the council direct staff to work on the requested amendments to the municipal planning strategy to expand the permissions for commercial developments in the comprehensive residential R3 zone through, in this case, the subsequent development agreement process. If the council were to direct staff to work on the requested MPS amendment, a full policy analysis would be completed for the planning analysis report. Additionally, directing staff to work on the amendments would not commit council to anything regarding the proposed development. It's just to look at the municipal planning strategy and whether staff would recommend the proposed changes to facilitate the commercial component of this development. Thanks.
Any questions?
So if we were to expand the commercial uses that were able to be used in these areas, can you give me some examples of what they may be beyond convenience type stores?
Yes, and so I spoke about the alignment with the neighborhood commercial zone work that's currently underway with staff. It would be those more neighborhood-oriented commercial uses. So uses that serve an immediate area, a neighborhood, such as personal service shops, perhaps offices, other types of convenience stores, neighborhood grocery convenience stores, that serve that neighborhood and allow people that work, live balance, and but not larger scale commercial that would serve the region or the full area.
And this is so this would be a change for Bridgewater. Are there other towns that are doing similar things as to what's being proposed?
Well, that would be part of the analysis. So we analyze and evaluate our current policy, but we'll also look to others. It is a trend to mix land uses in such a way, compatible land uses, uses that if it is commercial, it's not negatively impacting the residential feel of an area. That is certainly prevalent in other areas and in other communities in Nova Scotia. And we do permit some level of commercial through development agreement in the comprehensive residential zone now. This would be expanding on those permissions.
Other questions? Councilor Thorburn?
Yeah, do we have a timeline when some of that work would be done? I know that 1B and 1A, that's all within the town boundary. After that, then the building and the MODL area,
well, that's correct. The existing development agreement does have phase 2 and 3, which would be outside of town.
Right.
So that would be examined. The full development agreement would be substantively amended, and the idea at this point, so there's the municipal planning strategy amendment portion to this application, which is the focus here. But as far as the development agreement, phase 1A would remain and be substantially left the same, but we have to look at the full development agreement, and the end result is likely to be 2 new development agreements, so one for phase 1A and one for phase 1B. Not sure yet what might happen with phases 2 and 3. That will involve conversations with the property owner, the applicant, also the district.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councilor Thorburn.
The second, the computers froze. Somebody else have to do it.
Councilor Colwell.
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater direct staff to commence the planning analysis and report for the requested amendments to the municipal planning strategy to expand the permissions for commercial developments in the comprehensive residential zone.
Seconded by Councilor Conklin. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. 6.2 is declaration of public street for St. Philip Street, Nectar Road.
Thank you. So yes, the town owns the Connector Road, currently under construction in the expanded Bridgewater Business Park, so northeast of the 103. To facilitate subdivision and creation of building lots adjoining the future street, council must declare the road parcel as a public street vested in the town of Bridgewater. Once declared as a public street, the town's economic development officer can further discussions with prospective developers or property owners. Regarding naming of the proposed public street, the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend Enterprise Drive as the street name for the proposed public street. Enterprise was chosen to represent the early newspaper industry commemorating the Bridgewater Times, which was later renamed the Bridgewater Enterprise, a newspaper that eventually moved to Lunenburg and whose name forms part of the more recent Progress Enterprise. Additionally, the committee found the name appropriate in relation to the business park expansion project that is spurring new business development. Staff recommend the council declare by motion the acceptance of the public street. And subsequently, staff recommend on behalf of the Heritage Advisory Committee that the new public street be named Enterprise Drive. So there's two separate recommendations there. The street is still under construction. So while it can be declared a new public street, which would then allow some subdivision and creation of lots, it's still not going to be open for public use for quite some time. So if council wanted to declare public street this evening, but defer the name, that is an option. And that's why the two are separated.
I like the name. I think it works with the vision of what we have for that. But anyway, any questions or?
I'd just like to commend the Heritage Advisory Committee for a great name. Great name, I love it.
No.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Or someone prepared to make a motion, Councilor Conklin?
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater declare and accept the public street described as St. Philip Street Connector Road in the Business Park, and support the recommendation of the Heritage Advisory Committee and name the new public street Enterprise Drive.
Second by Mayor Frazier. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are down to reports and recommendations. The South Shore Sustainability Summit. And we have Megan Doucette here. And I think joining us virtually is Matt DeMorney. There we go.
Hello. Hello. I am going to pass it off to Matt to share a little bit more about the South Shore Sustainability Summit and project that we have committed to doing with the town of Mahone Bay and municipality of the District of Lunenburg, and happy to answer questions after the presentation.
I'll share my screen. Okay, so can I just get confirmation everyone can see the screen here?
I think you're sharing the wrong screen. There we go. Yep. Perfect.
Okay. So I am Matt DeLore. I'm the Executive Director of Atlantic Infrastructure Management Network. Just as a reminder to anyone who doesn't remember from the last time, we forwarded some information. We're a nonprofit. We help municipalities with training, education, and technical assistance to do asset management. Boy, I was sure interested in the tax discussion at the beginning, but I know we don't have time to get into that today. But it's very much an asset management issue as our natural assets. So my goal here for today was brevity, not thoroughness. So I'd encourage you to ask any questions at the end of this, or as Megan said, you can pass those questions through her, and we're meeting regularly on the summit, so she can pass those on to us and get answers to you. So really, to go over the reason we brought up this regional project in the first place is that we've worked with over 100 communities in Atlantic Canada, and most of them are small or medium size, under 10,000 people. And we saw some common themes. One, everyone's challenged with the efficiency of resources. That's time, people, and money. And it also appears to be a problem that is going to get increasingly challenging because there's a lot of people coming toward the end of their careers, and there's going to be difficulty in succession planning. So we wanted to look at this regional service delivery idea and start to get communities together to work together and break down some of those jurisdictional silos, because we are going to have a challenge in Atlantic Canada to continue delivering services, and this is part of the solution set. The other thing is that in terms of climate resiliency, that's both adaptation and mitigation, there is a vast ocean of information out there, and we wanted to really put an effort towards communities working together to select the appropriate tools, resources, and data. And to that end, we actually partnered up with Climate Atlantic in this process. They're a nationally funded non-governmental organization whose sole purpose is to select the right bit of local climate data to communities that are doing this type of work. The third piece here is one that's really close to my heart, is coordinating this climate work with core service delivery. You mentioned earlier in the meeting there that you have a wastewater facility that needs upgrades because the regulations have dictated so. So any work that you're doing in terms of climate mitigation and adaptation has to consider those changing service delivery requirements, along with what's really brand new to all of us is adapting to a changing climate and is only going to get more severe in the future. So you need to balance it with how are you prioritizing that preparation with just maintaining your aging infrastructure. The last one, and certainly not the least important, is making that connection with public concerns to municipal decisions. Over the last few decades, there's been a pattern of, we built a lot of infrastructure in the 60s and 70s that worked okay. No one had to think much about it. We're coming into a period where we're facing some very difficult decisions in how we manage infrastructure. And if we do it right, we can actually build better communities through that effort, not just slog our way through a bunch of difficult decisions, but that's going to take community input. So we really want to see to see people start getting more involved in these municipal infrastructure decisions. So to date, we had an initial workshop where we identified participants, set the general goals for public engagement, built the working group, and developed a short list of potential joint projects. This does contain two pieces to it. One is the public engagement, one is a joint project effort. Once we had an idea of what the potential was for the joint projects, we took that away, built some detailed scope and deliverables. I believe you reviewed that list. We've selected the preferred project out of everyone's first and second choices. The one commonality was looking at natural assets. And then we also confirmed the dates and the draft program for the Climate Summit, which is happening in September, on September 23rd, or 22nd and 23rd. Along with those two initial workshops, we've been conducting either bi-weekly or weekly planning meetings with the municipal working group. We've been getting in contact with presenters, sponsors, and exhibitors. You're going to soon see a draft program coming through, and we're also ready to start the real publicity push for it with some kind of leading publicity, save the date material going out to the community. We just finished one of these in Pictou County, and this one in the South Shore is actually even more ambitious than that one. We had about, in Pictou County, we had about 150 people out through the day, lots of community involvement, and it was a really it was just a really great experience. And right now the South Shore one's turning out to be even more ambitious. Well, the one we just finished was only a single day. Right now we're looking at through the Friday, doing more of a municipal official council summit, and it's going to focus about half the time on this natural asset project and about half the time on general regional cooperation to kick some ideas around and see how you can continue as communities to work together and even bring in some of the other communities in the area. On Friday evening, we're having a social event. Megan can explain in detail the Pichi night because she is going to be coordinating it. I'm really excited for it because it seems like a great way to get messages across in a social atmosphere. With, you know, it's actually going to make municipal infrastructure management fun for the general public, which I'm super super excited about. On the Saturday, which is the summit day that's open to the public, we'll have an opening ceremony, a keynote speaker. We're looking for a municipal panel to let everyone in the community know what the municipalities are up to. Discussion on natural assets, home efficiency panel, so that Efficiency Nova Scotia, the Clean Foundation, and Nova Scotia Community College can come out and tell people how they can actually take action in their own homes easily and in fact save money in doing it. Based on recent events, we're building in a piece for fire risk and preparedness. As we did in the Pictou Summit, we're bringing in a piece on Indigenous perspectives, which for me as an engineer is a really interesting place to be going with our new national adaptation strategy, and quite frankly I think it's going to leave us with a lot better design approaches. We'll have speakers on equity and climate change, looking at some of those issues on who can be forgotten in climate impacts and how it can with catastrophic events not affect everyone equally. Acadia First Nations, and then some workshops we're putting together for the public to really get their hands dirty, so to speak, with climate change and municipal management, or infrastructure management, because we do want to see that that participation of residents. So that's the summit piece. We're also going through a joint regional project with staff, which is on natural asset planning. We're actually this week, just in a couple of days, going to finalize the scope, but I can give you a general idea of what it's looking like. So it's really setting the stage for you to have a look at what is it that you have in terms of natural assets that are, and when I say assets, these are just things that provide services to the community. Historically and through most of my career, we ignored assets, or natural assets. They were something that were to be protected on an environmental scale, but they weren't something that we really looked at how they integrated into the rest of our service delivery and took at them as just another piece of the whole, which was, we now are looking at that's not the ideal way to go forward. So we're looking at cataloging those much in the way that we catalog our other assets. To do this project, you don't have to have it all cataloged. What we're really looking at doing is what is a regional approach going to be for looking at these assets in terms of how are you going to catalog them, what services does it provide, how does it support your municipal strategic objectives, how do they support your municipal services, how can they help with climate resiliency, and even building in things like social good, health and wellness, and biophysical connectivity. This is the thing we do at AIM Network. We help communities build things like level of service assessments. So we do all the heavy lifting with this, and your staff's going to be involved in reviewing the reports and the approaches to make sure that it suits all of the municipalities. But we build all of this based on the work we've been doing elsewhere on natural assets. We're also going to look, because this is a regional project, is how do they cross jurisdictional boundaries? Typical municipalities work in silos where their border ends. They don't need to deal too much with anything outside of it. Wetlands, aquifers, forests, things that we use for recreation don't follow those rules. So we're going to look at how do you bring that into your strategy with managing your other assets, like I need to fix my wastewater treatment plant. Talking about how we assess condition with them, and very importantly, how do I integrate with my other assets? You're going to be on the leading edge with this. There's some Canadian standards out on assessing condition of natural assets. The nut has not been cracked yet on how to integrate them completely with engineered and built assets. And part of this project is we're putting together a framework for how to do that. So you'll be potentially on the national stage with that, because we work with FCM and other communities of practice across the country, and we'll be doing a report with FCM on how these things came together with each of your communities. So there's really a potential here for Bridgewater to, I'd say again, be on the national stage along with your energized Bridgewater. So with that, as I said, I was aiming for an update with brevity. I'm open for any questions if you have any.
Any questions? I mean, my only question was, maybe this isn't the venue to ask the question. I know this wasn't our first choice, natural assets. I know the EV infrastructure was. So just looking at all the things that this contains, is this still applicable to us? Like, is there is there, if we go through this, is there work that we can do coming out of it?
It's a good question, and I actually don't feel fully prepared to answer it. So CAO Tammy Crowder is the one that would be taking on the project component of this. Unfortunately, she's not here tonight. So she would be the one kind of coordinating with that aspect of the project. I'm more so working on the summit and the community engagement portion.
Okay, so that's more than fair. Yeah.
I guess, sorry, if I could just speak a little bit to that briefly in terms of giving you a resounding yes with that. There will be work that you can come out of it. The goal is that by looking at natural assets, and in particular at a regional level, you can save money on what you do with your existing assets, and also start to get a broader range of, can you replace things like recreational services instead of having built assets? Can you work with natural assets to provide those services? So ultimately, this is driving towards having more efficient and lower cost service delivery over the long term is our goal.
Okay. I don't know if there's any other questions. Okay. No, that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. Okay, 9.2, revisions to personnel policies and procedures. So we gave notice at the last meeting that this was coming today, so I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance, I guess.
Okay.
You're running through this one for us?
I am. So a report was submitted based on the review of the current personnel policy and procedures manual, which lays out a lot of our policies for staff on vacation and time off, meeting pay, and so on. So as part of our process of looking to see that we're doing everything we can to attract and retain the best employees, we're making some recommendations as a result of that. And so the first one is vacation. So currently the starting allotment for employees who have been here 1 to 3 years is 12 vacation days. And we are recommending that we increase that to start at 15 days. There is a schedule attached which compares, what some of the other municipal units in the province are offering. It's a little bit all over the board, but quite a few are starting employees with 15 days vacation. So we are recommending that change. The second one is a little more detailed, and that's meeting pay. So currently when staff, like this evening, are attending a meeting, there's kind of 2 tiers of pay. There's a meeting under an hour or a meeting over an hour. And there's just a set amount. It changes by CPI annually. But currently it's $54.10 for under an hour, or $77.29 for meetings more than 1 hour. So it doesn't take into account our marathon budget meetings, for example, large planning meetings which have staff here for significantly more than the hour. And so one other piece of feedback we've received from staff is sometimes they just don't want the extra pay. They would rather have time off. But meeting pay is meeting pay. It's just paid out automatically. There's no banking it. There's no facility with which to just use that for time off later. So the recommendations are indicating that we would permit staff to bank that as overtime. And to ensure the staff don't build up large banks, it would be a rolling bank, so they could never have more than 35 hours in their bank if they work a 35-hour work week, or 40 if they work 40 hours. And it would be, they could have the choice to take the time off later or take it in pay. But no larger bank than the 35 or 40 hours. Except for senior management, who would be restricted to just time off in lieu and not meeting pay. So that's the second. The third is regarding service awards, and that recommendation is coming from our Management Labor Relations Committee, and they have suggested that we look at increasing the existing service awards to double those. So employees, for example, that have been here for 5 years, previously it would have been $50, that would double to $100. And so, so that's proposed for all the different years of service. So currently employees who are here 5 and 10 years would have just received the town pin and wouldn't have had a set amount. Sorry, I started with 5, but I didn't need to, so I meant 15. And then there's a housekeeping item with Appendix A in that manual. And so we've identified, there are some financial impacts, but for the most part, they're not significant because we already had meeting pay, and in some cases, staff may just actually take the time off. So we're not expecting a large impact. The vacation allotment, a small impact, about $5,000, and that's mostly just related to people that we might be paying out a specific amount. For the most part, when people are salaried and take vacation, their salary just continues, so there's not a financial impact to that. I guess anybody has any questions?
Any questions? Is someone prepared to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Thorwood,
I will, Your Worship. I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the amendments to the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual as presented in document number 23-090B with respect to vacation allotments, meeting pay, and service awards, and repeal of Policy 11, Service Awards Housekeeping, effective July the 1st, 2023.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor McDonald. Further discussion?
Question.
Councillor Conklin, sorry.
Just making note of the time. It's been more than an hour so far tonight, so.
Effective July 1.
That's right.
It's probably worth pointing out to the public who are probably wondering why we're doing this. Staff are here, guaranteed there are staff at every council meeting, but that's just, it's like saying to a church pastor, you only work on Sundays. Well, no, there's a lot of work that leads up to that Sunday, right? There's a lot of work that leads up to the Monday council meeting. There's a lot more work that, before the council meeting. So staff have meetings, to your point, the budget, budget season is long hours, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. So people are probably wondering, meeting pay. Yeah, we have sometimes, I'll take the blame, some long meetings, and staff are working a full day, and then going home maybe, and then coming back and then staying here for 3 hours or 4 hours, depending how long it is. So, we're blessed with great staff that, they do that with a smile, but it's time to update the policy because it's been on a long path. So, we have a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the other item we gave notice to at the last meeting was revisions to policy 89. So that's fees for the O'Regan Subaru outdoor pool. Now, just not to confuse the two issues, we had a presentation from the Barracudas. We're going to deal with that after. So these are two. We're going to keep these as two separate. Because we have to deal with the pool fees, and then we'll deal with the Barracuda request later. And if we make no change, then they'll have to pay the updated fees. And if council entertains a change, then that will override this year. Anyway, I'll turn it over to Director of Community Development.
Sure, just quickly. The Policy 89, the fees policy, was brought in 2018 to pull all of the fees that were in every policy and some not in policy and put them in a single place. So that was 2017. Did I say the right date? I can't remember. So in 2017, that policy came into place. In 2018, recreation became my responsibility. And I didn't realize that our fees for the pool were not actually in the fees policy. And so when we went to look at actually updating some of the fees, we realized the fees, I have no idea when the fees were last changed for the pool. They have remained the same under my time being responsible for recreation, so for the past 5 years, and they were the same that I inherited from at least 2016, 2017. I honestly do not know when there was a last an increase. And so we dove into as much of the detail we could find for the formulas and for all the rest to sort of figure out what's going on, recognizing that cost of living has been increasing and everybody's been feeling the pinch, and that one of the goals that council has supported with the outdoor pool is to keep it as barrier-free as possible while still having to charge some form of admission if maybe we get to a level of sponsorship that overcomes what we actually make in revenue from the pool, then perhaps that could be a future discussion. So we took this to the Parks, Recreation, Culture Advisory Committee. There wasn't quorum at our actual meeting, but they met via email to make a motion to recommend these fees, that we keep the entrance fees the same as they have been since, I honestly don't know when. So at least since 2018, that's all that I could confirm, so that's what's in the report. To keep the lesson fees the same, which are the same since 2019, because we didn't run private or semi-private swimming lessons in 2018, and I don't know what they were prior to my responsibility for the pool. And then a small change to the group rates and rentals, which was the large contract rate for daycares. They bring an average of number of youth and support staff. It varies greatly, so the rationale for that was around that it is a lower rate. They're not renting the pool privately. They are sharing the pool, but they don't know how many kids they might bring on a given day. So they pay a flat rate. They might bring more than 25 one day, they might bring less than 25 the next, and they schedule in when they come, because the larger daycares in our town, so the three, the Bridgewater Daycare, the YMCA, and Small World, we had a few incidences in my first year of being responsible for the pool where they all came on the same day and we did not have enough staff. We had to call in extra guards, those sorts of things, to maintain ratios. So now we schedule when they come, and they pay sort of a flat rate that they can sort of have the flexibility of how many kids they're bringing each time. So that's the large group contract rate, and then the private pool rental rate to change from $80 to $100. That private pool rental rate, when we discussed it, was primarily it was that you could rent the entire pool, and there was that extra guard. So depending, it was $80 for a set number of swimmers, of bathers, and then charge for, and it was based on the hourly rate that we paid lifeguards, which has gone up every year because of the increase to minimum wage, and to be competitive, because lifeguards are actually a very scarce commodity. And so the rationale was looking at those costs of the lifeguards. We would lift limiting, it would be a bather limit, so it would be 90 people you could have in the pool, because you'd have 3 guards on site. So rather than having $80 for 25 people, it was, we suggested 100 for the pool. Right now, with some of the changes that came with the outdoor pool, where we've partnered with the LCLC to provide the lifeguards, we've had we've cut down on how much rental there is outside of the Barracudas. The Barracudas have about 73 hours of scheduled rental this coming season, plus their swim meet, which we don't have that rental contract determined for the swim meet. And they were always charged the same rate of the $80, the same as someone who wanted to rent it for a birthday party or a family pool party or something like that. They were charged the same. So that's the rationale. So it's just 2 of the rates to change and the rest to be the same. And the other change is just to align with the same definition as the LCLC for family, because the definition that was in our guide was a very specific 2 adults and no more than 4 kids, or something, 5 kids or something like that, but we know that there are people who have more than that. So.
Any questions?
Were the daycares consulted about the proposed changes, and if so, did they offer any feedback?
To be honest, I have not heard if they've provided any feedback yet.
But they were notified or consulted? I
did not consult them myself, but we spoke about it at our team meeting, so I'm thinking that sorry, I should have checked on that.
Did we did some upgrades to the pool this year?
We have been doing significant upgrades to the pool. So in 2019, we refinished the entire physical structure of the pool. Last year, we added a new chemical controller system to more easily manage the pool chemistry, because we were really struggling with the appropriate chlorine levels, and we were using granular chlorine, so you had to go throw it in the pool. And so now we have an ongoing, and you can monitor it from your phone. And then this year we've been doing upgrades related to the physical facility, because we had an audit of the pool carried out last fall. So there's some improvements. We did receive a grant from the province to help offset those costs, but in the budget you approved about $30,000 in improvements. We've received $8,000 from the Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage.
Councillor McDonald.
So any of the known regular users received a notice to let them know that there was an increase? Is that what Blair Lipset was saying?
That was our intention. Certainly the Barracudas did. I realized that I did not get confirmation that the daycares did.
Okay. Can I ask how far in advance of the change it goes out? Is that part of the policy?
It is not, actually. And it was one of those things where we, so it wasn't. And so there hasn't been sufficient notice on either of those.
Okay.
You know, because it was June 14th, where June 13th was the Parks, Recreation, Culture Advisory Committee.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Comments? I mean, the reality is the costs are going up, and we've invested quite a bit of money in the pool over the last number of years to make sure it was sustainable. And part of that, making it sustainable, is also making sure that you are charging a fair and equitable rate. I don't see the $8 for the daycare and the $20 for the private pool as a big barrier. When you think of, we haven't raised these rates in a minimum of 5 years. I cannot remember the last time. Trying to think back, like 2004 to 2012. I can't remember raising rates. I don't know if it's 2012 that
I come on 2012, and we haven't raised rates since then, and Jennifer can attest to that. So it's been 10 or 12 years plus since the rates have gone up.
Because were rates baked in a bylaw? Were they all? I remember we had fees that were all in we went to a fees policy because fees were baked into a bylaw, and so in order to change the fees, you had to literally update bylaws, which was multiple meetings, and it just was such a huge burden that I certainly remember when there were times we looked at things and we just went, we're not going to, for a small change, we're not going to update a bylaw with a first reading and a second. Like, it just was a lot. But I think that's where you get to the point where you can't find when things change, and they probably didn't change for a long time. But anyway, any further questions? $150,000 worth of upgrades was the number that Jessica just shared. So that's Councillor Collins.
Just a comment. I'd just like to say, I mean, the fees are, for example, for daycares, the change in my mind is sort of nominal. But I would like in the future to have assurance that when we change fees, if there's a regular user, that they're consulted in advance to ensure that. Perhaps they were.
I just had confirmation through a separate message that no, our email did not go out, and it was short notice. I admit that, but we were grappling with a number of different realities that we were trying to manage. So. That's fine. Go.
Can I just ask before I go to Councilor the change in fee? So if we enact these fees July 1st, what's that? Let me rephrase that. We didn't enact these until July 1st, 2024. What's the revenue?
I don't think we've calculated it for all our users, but Jessica and I did talk today, and for the Barracudas, it would be about $1,100.
I'm just thinking in terms of because it is short notice, and I mean, I understand there's a lot going on, and you run multiple departments. Like, I understand short notice, but I'm just trying to think of if daycares weren't consulted and the Barracudas got late notice. I'm just putting that out there for council, that in terms of, we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. Anyway, just.
Certainly not. The pool does not even bring in $10,000 in revenue from fees. So it is really not a large part of the budget. It is nominal in terms of how much we do bring in. Probably around $10,000 in revenue between individuals coming and paying for the day, just the daily rates, or the monthly or the seasonal, and then the daycare rentals. And the Barracudas is sort of separate because it is our largest rental. But just to say, and I own the fact that we were really running behind on a lot of our rec programming this year due to our capacity constraints and change turnover in staff. So the notice was late, the idea was there early. Execution perhaps could have been better, and we have learned.
Councillor McDonald.
In a situation like this, I think it might almost make sense to defer this to 2024, and then potentially the advisory could look at providing some assistance and reaching out to some of the regular users and understanding when they budget, how much notice they need for changes, and make sure that we're doing it in a way that they can absorb. They're nonprofit, they don't have huge incomes, so we don't want to impact their ability to provide these services to the community. So I'd be really in favor of, it's not huge money, so, if we could put it off to next year, I think that would be a great idea.
We have also, just to that point, which I really appreciate, we have already put something in our calendar for November to look at fees for the 2024 season because of the rushed nature of this process. So
let's do it once.
Can I ask another question then? I can ask my meeting. I'll ask a question. So, if council's wish was to defer, is it better to make the motion with a July 1st, 2024 date, or to not just to defer this item because these rates may actually change again?
Or just to accept the rates as proposed. So if you look at the report, let me just pull it back up again. Hopefully I didn't accidentally close it. So the entrance fees, so I provided in the report, there's a table, so it breaks down the entrance fees. So those haven't changed, so we can include that. The lesson fees, those also haven't changed. And the direction could be to keep the group rate and rental the same as 2018.
But if there's no change, do we need to change anything?
It's not in the policy.
It's not in the policy, okay.
That's the
being
problem.
added to the policy?
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and the only change that would need to be made, sorry, on the private pool rental one is the way that it is, there is a wording in there, and I guess we'll just have to deal with that in terms of extra guards, I guess. And we will really need to sort out how many guards they need for the bathing load they're bringing. So it's just extra.
Okay, because that's not in our motion, so, or our proposed motion, I should say. But it's in the policy, okay. What is, Councillor Conklin?
Just a comment. So, yeah, Jessica mentioned about tabling this for, maybe November every year, review the fees. And I think Mr. Lipset said they did their budget around February, February. So let's say, for example, we don't do the fee review in November, and we do it like at budget time. There's a good chance that we will be, we could increase fees after association or organization like CUDA's set their rates for that coming season. I mean, sure, it's late notice and everything, but boy, oh boy, if we still want to maintain the community pool and pay for upgrades and upkeep and maintenance, it's bad timing, but I think it's inevitable.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone's proposing that we adjust our timelines to match other groups. I think the issue raised by Mr. Lipset was it was just a couple of weeks' notice.
Yeah.
So I guess that's Councillor Taylor.
I'm somewhat in the same boat. It amounts to about a $15 per swimmer fee increase that they would see. I'm still of the opinion that is one of the best valued entertainment or activities that the region provides. Probably the only one that beats that is tennis. Tennis is one of the cheapest ones going. We haven't raised fees since 2018, at least, probably before that, according to Councillor Thorburn. I think it's, to me, it's high time we did start sort of sharing the burden across multiple sort of areas of the town, and I'm fine with increasing for July 1 of 2023.
Councillor Caldwell, then Councillor Thorburn.
I agree with Councillor McDonald. I'd like to see it deferred to next year. I have no problem with increases, but I prefer it to to see it happen next year, just to give the nonprofits that are using the pool a little more notice.
No, I agree with Andrew. I think it's time we done something, and try go check into some other sports and see how much things have gone up in the last few years. Try raising somebody from minor hockey or even minor baseball. This is not a big increase, and it hasn't been an increase since 2012 at least. And I don't think it's big enough that we should have to give a year's notice. I don't think any taxpayer gets a year's notice when we pay a big tax bill. And they've gone up $700 to $800. We're talking $7 or $8, and a budget revenue stream of less than $10,000. Come on, let's get real.
Yep.
Jessica, is there a chance that when you review this in November, the increase could be recommended to be greater than what's proposed?
It could be.
Okay.
We would. I can't say at this point. You know, it was short. You know, a bunch of work in a very short amount of time. So planning to do it in November, we might do a little bit more, looking around, checking with our counterparts, like that sort of stuff. So it could. I honestly can't.
I guess my
crystal ball it at this point.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess my point is I'd rather ease into this versus just big jumps. So this to me isn't a big jump, and we might have another jump in November. So.
Well, I'll just remind council that this issue is separate from the Barracudas issue. I know, and I'm guilty of kind of mushing those two together. But the Barracudas one will come after. So just whether that is linked to your decision or not, that's entirely up to the individuals around the table. So we don't have a motion on the floor. So I guess why don't we get to that? Yes.
But if we defer this, then it negates the Barracudas issue, correct?
Yeah. So yes, we would not deal with that one initially. Yep. So I'm open to you. We've had various suggestions. One would be to put the motion on the floor that's written. Councillor Conklin.
Thank you. I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve amendments to Policy 89 fees as presented in document 23-093 with respect to the proposed fees for the O'Regan Subaru Outdoor Pool by 1, including the pool fees section, and 2, increasing the fees for large group contract rate for daycares from $52 to $60, and private pool rental from $80 to $100. Effective July 1st, 2023.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Thurman. So we have a mover and a seconder. So any discussion from folks on that? Question? Okay. Question. Did you were going to say something?
Just a clarification on that motion. Where we're talking $52 to $60 and $80 to $100, do we have to reference hourly rate or anything, or that's
I think it's written it's in the policy. That is the hourly rate.
It's in the document that you have
in
for hourly.
Policy 89.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we move her in seconder for 2023. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. 9.4 Building Inspection Report for May 2023 is there for your perusal. I'll just remind the public who are watching that all the documents, everything that we have in front of us is also on the town's website. So under the council tab is all the agenda and all the minutes. So everything's here, including the building permit report, which is another strong year. So year to date we're up in terms of values. It's no easing up. That's part of why staff are so flat out all the time. So that's there for people's perusal. Now we're down to new business. Bridgewater Barracuda swim team request for locking in the rental rate for 2023. So as you know, we have we had a request from Mr. Lipset that they be locked into their $80 per hour for 2023. So what is the wish of council? If someone wants to make a motion? Deputy Mayor?
Yes. Yes, I'll make a motion, Your Worship, that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the request of the Bridgewater Barracuda Swim Club and lock in the private pool rental fees for their 2023 season at $80 per hour.
Seconder, Councillor Caldwell. Any discussion? Questions being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is defeated. Okay. Thank you. I guess we kind of had a discussion with the other topic. All right. Will you inform Mr. Lips about the outcome, just because he had to leave and someone informs him? Yeah. Okay. All right. We have no other business before council. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Conklin, second by Councillor Caldwell. We are adjourned. Happy Canada Day, everybody.
Yes.